Awesome. So while Jason is figuring out his technical items, I think we'd love to get going with basic introductions. Really excited to have this conversation today. My name is Hannah Johnson. I'll be moderating and also participating as part of the chat. I am the head of human resources for Thoma Bravo. We are a private equity firm with about $80 billion in assets under management. We primarily focus on software buyout, and have a couple other products, but that is our main game. And I will then now toss it to, I'll go Justin. Let's go with you.
Hi, I'm Justin Wang. I'm with the Texas Teachers Pension Fund, $190 billion fund, and I lead our European private equity arm, I guess, and private equity as a whole, we're about $30 billion of NAV, and we've over the last few years we've grown our team size from about 8 to 10 to in the mid-20s now. So mentoring and how to retain talent is a huge focus of ours right now.
Amazing. And then Caroline?
Sure. So I'm currently wearing two hats right now. I have been with the private equity firm HTW for 20 years now, hard to believe. Most of that time I was the partner in charge of divestitures. So helping get our companies ready for exit, sitting on boards, shepherding them through the process, but have in the past year dropped down to part-time, and I'm overseeing ESG. And then importantly to this panel, I founded Craftsberry Consulting. So with that, I am working mostly with women in the industry, helping mentor, advise, work on their career development. So kind of directly relevant to what we're talking about today, and I'm excited to be here.
Well, thank you all for being here. Jason, I'm going to check in with you.
How about this? I'm here.
Right on time.
This is like the trial by fire over here. So apologies for being.
Oh my gosh, we're just going round robin with introductions. So if you wouldn't mind letting us know a bit about who you are, what you do, and then we'll get into some content.
Yeah, happy to. So nice to meet you all. And I'm Jason Beard. I'm a managing director with TA Associates. I'm based in our Menlo Park office, although I'm originally from New Jersey, which you may be able to tell from my piece of speech. I help lead our efforts in business services, which is my sort of day job. My afternoon and evening job is spend a lot of time with our associates. So I spend time on our diversity and inclusion groups. I spend time in our mentorship area, and then I spend a lot of time on recruiting and training. And then I'm a graduate of the University of Michigan, where I spent a lot of time on a whole bunch of these initiatives, and spent a lot of time back at the university and in my high school getting involved with getting folks into the industry and making more awareness about private equity, largely because I didn't necessarily have those opportunities, and it's really important to share this.
Fantastic. So obviously a lot of expertise in this group. I'm excited for the discussion. The first question is specifically more around the role that mentorship itself plays is, and Caroline, I'll direct this one to you to kick it off, but what role do you think mentorship plays in fostering an inclusive culture? Similar to what you and Jason have both sort of pointed out is part of how your role is weaving into different organizations. Would love to know how that manifests itself.
Sure. Well, I guess I'd start with saying culture, and an inclusive culture is just really important, and it matters, and it matters to productivity. It matters to retention, and it really has to start at the top. But mentorship to me is really about building a support system and providing informal resources that are a sounding board, giving junior people access to, thought leaders in the firm, or, people that can help them navigate, through their early years. And if junior folks feel that support and feel that kind of loyalty from others, they're going to be more likely to stay. and they're going to be more productive, and they're going to be, happier. So I think that whole mentorship, it's more than just a relationship between two people. It's all people within the firm sort of looking out for junior folks. It's, thinking about their development in a more organic way.
Yep. And on that note, Jason, I'd love to hear more about how you all do that at TA, and how did you recognize at some point that more resources, or that there was a need for someone like you to be dedicating so much time and energy to such a effort, I guess?
You're kind to say it, Hannah, but I would like to say I'm not alone in that effort. I think we at the board are spending a lot of time in that regard. And I think part of it is, I think Caroline said it best, part of it is this job is about being an apprenticeship business and spending time with people, and leadership is about, touching folks. And that may not always mean economic, right? I think there's a part of every person who works in these industries that wants to be a part of something bigger than themselves, right? And I'm sure it's the same in Texas and Natoma. You want to be a part of companies that are excelling and making a difference in the world in a meaningful way. And I think helping people experience that and see it, so it's not just Excel spreadsheets and PowerPoint presentations, is really meaningful, and it gives meaning to the work that we do. So that's the first half. And then on the second half, I think, look, competitive differentiation is about finding great people who exude confidence and enthusiasm and energy to the companies with whom we spend time. And it's a big part of what we do. Hustle and sense of humor is as important as technical skills and sort of, rote memorization of the work that we have to think about. So I just think that I share Caroline's perspective of the world, and I think we can do well by doing good with the people on our team and within our portfolio companies themselves.
Absolutely. Justin, would love to hear your angle on this as well.
Yeah, I think Caroline and Jason covered it really well. It really does need to start from the top and come down, and people need to realize it is an investment. And you need to treat it that way. If you want to be a mentor, you really need to think about it and strategically think about it, and how you can help build your talent up. And what we realized when we were a much smaller organization, the most obvious thing is to make your most senior people the mentors. But as we've come along, people may not want to be a mentor, and it's much more detrimental to have a mentor who doesn't want to be a mentor than really not have a mentor at all. And so we've really had to think about that as we've evolved.
Which is incredible and a wonderful awareness to have as an organization, I think. Something that we've talked about is this informal versus formal, right? And I think especially given, if we're taking the audience into consideration, right? Rising stars, so people within our organizations that are already showing leadership qualities at exceptional levels, et cetera. What do you believe? What do you believe is some of the catalysts for making something more informal versus formal? And then if you feel the desire to answer the second part of the question, it would be, what is your advice for somebody in that, rising star position, for how do they take advantage of what role they're sort of playing within the organization to assist in what mentorship means? I would say I'll put that to anybody, and I'm happy to speak to it as well.
Well, I can jump in. I think both formal and informal sort of mentorship is really important. For me personally, in my development, it was the informal mentors, sponsors that made a huge difference in my career, just helping me navigate obstacles and reach high, encouraging me all the way. I still reach out to those people that were instrumental in my development. So finding that sort of true sponsor out there is really, really important as you navigate your career. Someone who, when you're not in the room, is going to stand up for you. And I've had just, amazing people do that for me, and wouldn't be where I am or have developed the way I did without having those sponsors. But I think it can be super important both on the informal and the formal. And sort of advice for those rising stars, if with respect to the informal, find somebody you really respect, and find someone who's really respected in your firm, who whose way of looking at the world is consistent with yours and whose values are consistent with yours, and then be really valuable to them. Because it's a two-way street. It's not just about them helping you, it's about you helping them too, and developing a genuine friendship. And to me, that's thinking about who is that person that I can help and that can help me when you're sort of looking for that sponsor is important.
Mm-hmm.
And Hannah, I actually think your perspective on this is going to be valuable too. But the one, I completely agree with Caroline's point. I think her advice for how to find a mentor and how to think about informal mentorship is invaluable. The one nuance that I think I didn't appreciate until probably 5 or 10 years ago was that the person with whom you choose to bond doesn't necessarily need to be the same as you. In fact, in many cases, finding someone whose diversified skill set is perhaps an area where you are self-aware about your own weaknesses. So for example, for me personally, I'm a really good cop. I'm not a great bad cop. And sort of learn to be more direct and to provide more direct feedback because it's made me a more effective leader and a manager. But Hannah, you're living the HR vertical more frequently than I am. I do on TV, so I'm curious to hear your perspective.
But so appreciate that, and I think it's a great piece of advice for those that are really learning and in a leadership position. To your point, for myself, there are areas that I for sure have development opportunities in, and I now for sure I'm seeking out people that will help bridge that gap, right? That aren't exactly the same as I am. And I think that informally within Thoma Bravo, we absolutely will encourage people to do that. And then in terms of formally, I think we have realized that since we've grown quickly and since the pandemic for sure, we wanted to be a little bit more intentional with how people are interacting with one another, especially our associates and senior associates across the firm, right? You don't have that natural, organic bumping into somebody in the kitchen experience any longer. So we built out a formal-ish program, and we're intentional and thoughtful in making sure that people were actually paired with folks that were not on their exact team even, right? That were on a different team within the organization who have a totally different day-to-day experience than they do. And then I would say that at our more senior levels, I think the direction that we're heading is also recognizing that yes, the mentor may be within the organization, but it may be a member of the operating team. It may be a coach. That might be the type of relationship that somebody really needs at that point in their career. So I think what we've all sort of said in more than one way is that we're all taking an individualized approach to the development of our talent and those people that we want to keep within the organization, which is, it's an exciting time to be in the HR talent world, and hopefully hopefully it ends up being kind of just a part of all of our DNA moving forward, right? So
yeah, I mean, I think it's incredibly valuable to find a mentor outside your direct group, and somewhere at TRS it's a lot easier because we have public markets, trading, and a lot in like infrastructure and real estate outside of private equity, so it's a lot easier for us. But if your organization doesn't, then I would try to encourage you to find a mentor outside your organization, because it's always helpful to get that outside lens. Someone who's coming in from an outside-in view and getting a fresh pair of eyes and giving you advice on that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I always.
On that note, Justin, can you speak to some of the ways that you believe you've sort of successfully woven some of these mentorship and or apprenticeship opportunities within your organization, some best practices, etc.? Uh-oh, I think he froze. I mean, Caroline or Jason, easy for you all. I know we've talked about, for example, including people, broader groups at investment committee or something along those lines, but would love to hear how you believe you've been able to kind of successfully do some of these.
Caroline, you go first.
Yeah, I think first I want to say in terms of the outside resources, I just want to chime in real quick. I mean, that's why I founded Craftsbury Consulting, is I can be that outside sounding board. And Jason hit it on the head. People, the importance of confidence, enthusiasm, what energy you're putting out in the room. Those are all the things that if you can help these junior people think about those things, exercise, building out that confidence, it's just huge in your career progression. So I love, and that's what my working for. And then I think to your point, Justin we talked about this in our pre-call, including, having that all hands meeting where you have your entire team and looking for the input of all the people in the room is a huge development opportunity within our organizations. And I think too often sort of senior folks, just keep the discussion amongst themselves, and instead of really using that as an opportunity to help people grow, learn, be a part of it. If you have a pitch and you bring a full team and only the top two people speak, me in my exit role saw that a lot. It's like, I want to see everybody in the team talk, and I want to see how you interact, because it's just like a management meeting when you're buying companies. How's the team interacting? And thinking about using those opportunities to really develop your people, I think is really important.
Yeah, I worked at a middle market GP called Peak Rock Capital before joining TRS, and we had our tradition, I guess, if you will, is every IC, everybody gets in the conference room. On every deal, we start with the youngest person to give their opinion, and we go around the room until it eventually gets to the head of the firm. And depending on how large organization, it may not be feasible. TRS, we rotate on a random basis on a junior person who speaks on a deal first or gives his or her opinion. So there's a lot of different ways you can try to do it to get a junior person involved and give them the coaching they need, because communication is so important, and how you present is so important as you get more senior in your career.
I love that style that Justin describes. We have something similar at TA where it's formal, where we have our associates speaking first, oftentimes to give their opinion or vote when the time comes. But it's also informal, and I make it a point as well. And I was trained this way because we were all junior 7 minutes ago. To be, you get in a car after a meeting, and I sort of joke that you got to assume the bushes have microphones. So you get in the car, you close the door, and you get on the highway. And then you ask the junior person what they thought of the meeting, because I think that's the most accurate way to get a real portrayal of what's happening. The other part that I'm trying to be more sensitive to, in my Gen Z studying up, communication style model, is it's not just about verbal communications, right? Like I can talk for as long as the day is. And I think the reality is that we need to find people who are also effective written communicators. And so one of the interesting models within TA and in general that I've seen be successful is we ask people to write memos, ourselves included, where we're sort of putting our hand over heart and going back and reviewing our analysis, and not memo in the office space form, but memo in let's get our thoughts and analysis on paper and let's communicate that way, because it's a lot harder for our investment professionals to be in an intimidating setting and say all that stuff. And sometimes written communications for younger generations appears to be a more preferable form of communication. So by the time I graduate out of this program, maybe it'll be by Slack or text message. You could give me your feedback on these companies. But the reality is I think that people communicate in different ways, and I think it's important to know that.
The most important thing is making sure they get the feedback afterwards. It's to just say, oh, what's your opinion? But if they make a mistake in something, or they could present something a little bit better, always make sure to give them that feedback. What we like to do is what we call putting them in low risk situations first. So, you know, we have our own co-investment meeting. So maybe they can start by presenting there first before they get to start presenting in our big IC meeting. You know, so you kind of build up their confidence and skill set that way, in terms of progression.
I think like your point on feedback is just so huge.
Yeah.
And great, you know, great bankers or great investors don't always make great managers. So the more we can do to help managers as well, like in my coaching, I bring in the supervisors as part of them, and I interview them and get their feedback and try and help improve the feedback loop. And I find, you know, if you can encourage supervisors to give timely, like right after a meeting, if there's some things that jump out at you, you know, talk about it. Be clear is kind. You're not, you know, by not giving that direct feedback, you're not helping them. So, and I always encourage people to be open to the feedback. Like if you argue about, well, I did this, don't forget I did that, you know, you're chilling that feedback. So it's both encouraging people to be, you know, proactive about giving feedback and helping people be receptive to that feedback. I think is really important.
And doing it in the moment, Caroline, I think that's so true, which is like, hey, you know, we're driving back from the meeting or we're getting out of investment committee. It's like, give that feedback real time. And I always say like, it's the old, perhaps it's a private equity twist on the Maya Angelou quote, which is, you don't remember what people said, but you remember how you felt. I think there's a little bit of, I'm not going to get exactly the example right in my corrective feedback around what happened, but at the same time, think critically about what it means when you have your arms crossed in a meeting and you're, you know, talking to an entrepreneur about their baby, right? Like there's the minor and there's the major, and I think if people can pick up the vibes, because I do think the environment that we foster is so important to everything that we do. But I really like Caroline's point around that, and Justin's.
I agree. I think it's a theme that we're seeing too, in that I would say the middle manager role right now plays a bigger role than ever before, because there really are sort of, you know, generationally in the middle of a couple of generations in terms of how people like to give and receive feedback. To your point, Jason, writing style, communication style. So I think Thoma Bravo is recognizing and is certainly putting more efforts into arming them with the tools that they need to be successful, and also trying to do it even before they get into that heavy duty leadership role that has a lot more, you know, weight to carry. But it's a big step too, to recognize at what level within your organization do we really need to start training them on and investing in them in terms of their communication development, their ability to give and receive feedback, etc. So it's certainly helping to dedicate those resources, but I think in a few years it'll be really exciting to see sort of how it's paid off in the long run, and to see what that level within our organizations is going to be doing. Let's see. All right. John said the Q&A is open. I have more questions, but if anybody that is listening or sitting and has questions, please feel free to write them in the Q&A and I will pay attention. Otherwise, I was going to head to advocacy, self-advocacy really. And we are all fortunate enough to be in positions where our organizations seem to be investing in this, right? It's certainly a priority of ours. And obviously, Caroline, you're somebody that Thoma Bravo, right, would hire to come in and help us. But for anybody listening who wants to know about advocating for themselves, or some tips or tricks on how to go about obtaining the resources to help with some of these development opportunities, does anybody have any advice for them? Jason?
I know, but the Zoom, you can even see body language. People are posturing. I apologize, because I actually will have to jump off after this question. But the one thing I was going to say is, for anyone listening who isn't necessarily in the private equity industry, or who is and is trying to figure out which direction they're going, I would encourage you strongly to, like, in terms of self-advocacy, the best advice I can give you is be relevant. And it was the advice that was given to me. So, like, when I was in business school, I was offering to work for people and intern with people and just be in the room where it happened. And I think so much of this industry is, as Caroline put it, it can't be transactional, right? You need to be there to help support people, and there is value that you can add. And you just got to find out where everybody's pressure point is, right? Like for Thoma Bravo, for TA, for a lot of these firms, finding the next deal and having an edge and being able to bring an infrastructure team. And I'm sure HKW in Texas are no different, right? I just think, you got to find out what people are focused on. And if you can fill that gap, if you can be like water and fill in the cracks of whatever's needed in that organization, I think it can be wildly helpful to try to find you access and opportunity with those.
Okay.
Yeah, I think thinking about the value proposition.
Thank you, Jason. If you got to bounce, it's been great chatting with you.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, I think within your firm, are you on a path towards being a really valuable person within your firm? Are you helping with the returns? Are you, and thinking about that path, where do you want to go? Set goals for yourself. The chances of hitting your target go up exponentially when you aim at it. So think about what is your target? What are you aiming for? What's that path you want? And, be mindful about setting those goals and going after them, because it's, when we're all busy, it's so easy to just have your head down and doing your work. And you got to pick up your head sometimes and think about where you want to go.
Yeah. I love that.
You are nobody will champion for you more than yourself. So it really is something that you need to take initiative with and think about. So yeah, that's probably what I would say.
And don't be afraid to ask for things.
Yeah.
Especially if it's a personal development thing. I think firms want to keep you. If you're working hard and you're doing well and you're a valuable resource, they're going to try and accommodate what you want. So be clear about, what you want. I have a question for you, Hannah.
Yeah.
So people, and talking about self-advocacy, people ask me, should I be going in and asking for a raise? Like, what do you say to people that talk about, that in terms of self-advocacy?
That's an interesting, loaded question.
Absolutely. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh, that's fine. I would say that think about your network of people that you work with within your organization. I think it's good to start a conversation about it if you believe that most people who are wanting a raise have thought about it, especially in this industry, and have really wondered about and thought about, how do I need to get from X to Y to Z, whatever it may be. But use your network, like use these relationships that we've been talking about. Go to somebody in HR or talent and say, I'm wanting to have this conversation. Can you help me come up with the talking points and help me navigate the best way to go about advocating for myself within the organization? HR, especially those of us in HR, we're used to it. So it's part of our job to understand and hear you out, and then also figure out how do we do what's ultimately best for you and for the firm. And I think that starting it out with a conversation, is a great way to go, versus just saying, I want and deserve X, Y, Z, right? I think that you have to be aware of what is appropriate culturally within your organization, but utilize the resources and those potential advocates within your structure to help get you where you want to go, or to help you find the clarity that you need if it's not going to happen, right? Caroline, that's going back to your goal setting. Yeah. If that ends up being the most important thing to you and the organization isn't willing to provide it, that's a big data point. It's a big data point for you. So that's not Thoma Bravo specific. That's just,
That's excellent advice.
Yeah, compensation specific. But Okay, it's 10:30. So I think that we just want to say thank you to all those who joined us. Thank you to Caroline. Thank you, Justin. Thanks to Jason, who had to leave us, but it was a lovely conversation. I'm sure we could talk about it for a long time. So appreciate everybody's time, and I will give it back to the M&A team.
Thanks, Hannah. You did a good
Thank
job.
you.